Hi, my name is Omar Small, and this is the Everyday Word, Kicking It with Brother Smalls, where we deliver content dedicated and designed to inform, uplift, elevate, and inspire. I wanted to talk to you about daddy issues. And before I get into that, I wanted to thank everyone who commented and gave me really good feedback on my last talk, How to Lead a Leading Lady. That's very, very helpful to me, and so I really appreciate it. But I wanted to talk about daddy issues, right? Father's Day was a couple of weeks ago. And why daddy issues? Why daddy issues, right? I don't know about you, but I celebrate being a dad each and every day. Just like I salute and honor all the beautiful women and mothers all year round. So it's not just one day that I relegate to celebrating being a dad. I do that every single day, and I honor the mothers all year round. I wanted to talk about daddy issues because I'm hoping that this talk impacts you, helps you in a process of healing, in the healing process. Doesn't matter how old you are. You don't reach a certain age and your emotions and your memories and your hurts turn off. In fact, very often we act because of our past traumas, right? Do you know someone that is still affected by a hurt, a trauma, a betrayal that they experienced as a child, adolescent, or even in their adult years, right? So it's imperative that we acknowledge, assess, and address, these issues in our lives. Because again, we want to have our best life. We want to have a life that's free, filled, and flowing with love, growth, and development. And so I wanted to talk about daddy issues. We want to be better for our families and for our communities. Okay, so you've heard men say, she got daddy issues, right? I've said that, unfortunately, she got daddy issues. But the truth is, we all have daddy issues. Men and women have daddy issues. And if we don't really recognize that, we're playing ourselves, we're fooling ourselves, and we're just in plain denial, right? Because we're not robots, right? We're not robots. Our upbringing, education, socialization, and lack thereof has impacted our lives in ways that we can readily understand and know, but sometimes in ways that we really can't really recognize, right? So it's our upbringing. It has a major impact on who we become. All right. So as you know, human beings, unlike any other of God's creations, we're impacted and we adapt to our environment. Right. So our environment and the exposure and that experience has a lot to do and an essential part of our overall well-being, right? Okay, so growing up without a father, and I'm just going to lay this down. Again, I want to talk about daddy issues. I also want to provide 5 steps that you can do to deal with daddy issues, okay? So I wanted to kind of lay a foundation here. Some of this information, again, you've heard, but I think it's important as we move forward in this particular topic, right? So growing up without fathers has a lasting impact. And studies have shown that fatherlessness impacts whether a child grows up in poverty, drops out of school, has a child out of wedlock, serves time in prison, right? Self-esteem issues, homelessness, general health, and even mortality, right? Rates are substantially affected by whether a father is in the life of a child, right? So the statistics are out there. And like I said before, I don't really want to get too weighed down in those statistics, okay? I'm a product of a single mother household. You know, my mom is my hero. All right. That's a fact. Okay. And so when I would hear stats about fatherlessness, you know, there were two perspectives. Okay. From my perspective, it was like, well, I've had success. I've had prominent positions. I've had multiple degrees. You know, I've been fairly successful, right? I've done okay, right? I've done okay. And so I have to be honest, that kind of was my perspective. But, you know, yet and still, I know that there was a major impact. And I'll talk about that because I want to kind of share some of the issues and some of my daddy issues, hoping that it helps you moving forward. So when you hear these statistics, you know, you can respond in one way. Hey, I was raised by a single mother and I'm fine. I'm good. I'm doing my thing. Or the other argument or the other side of that is from a woman's perspective. Like when you hear all this fatherlessness stats and, sometimes it's almost like discussing it in some way. It's disrespectful to women and the amazing contributions that they've made. And I don't think that's the furthest from the truth, quite honestly. Women have held it down in so many different ways and respects when men were derelict to their duty and responsibility. But what these stats do and prove is basically two are better than one. That the God design for family is the best. Right? So whether you grew up with a mother and a father or not, the relationship between a child and their parent is very important. We all can agree to that. We all can agree to that. So again, like I said, I want to be transparent here and talk about some of my issues, because I'm addressing them because I want my children and their children to grow and constantly move forward, making progress and not be in a cycle of repeating the same mistakes generation after generation. Hurt people hurt people. You've heard that before. But why is that? Very often it's because people don't do the necessary work to deal with their hurts. They deny, hurts. It didn't hurt me. They try to just move on, right? But you have to face your fears. You have to face certain things that are the facts. And when you do that, you can have real growth. On the other side of this discussion, I want to talk about fathers are impacted and sometimes disappointed with their children. Like I know fathers that are estranged from their children and they carry the hurt of not being acknowledged and respected for their contribution and status. I can recall having conversations with, people about reaching out to their kids. And there was a real hurt there because, the thought was, hey, they haven't called me. They haven't reached out to me. So there's a lot of hurt on both sides, okay? But I wanted to talk about daddy issues, the impact of them, and how you move forward, and how I'm moving forward, because I'm going to share a couple of the daddy issues that have impacted me and what I'm doing to address them. So the first one has to do with pride. And it's not pride in a negative sense. It's actually pride in a good sense. It's the pride of honor and glory. I'm going to give a scripture. It's in Proverbs 17:6, the New Living Translation. It says, grandchildren are the crowning glory of the aged. Okay, so grandchildren. People get really excited about their grandchildren, right? right? And so, but parents are the pride of their children, the honor, the glory of their children, right? So, in this respect, children look up to their parents. They have great pride in their parents, honor and glory. Like, my dad is this person, my dad. And for me, I didn't have that. I didn't have that. Okay, so when I was 8 years old, my mom and dad divorced. And if I saw him 5 times after that, it was a lot. It was a lot. If I saw him 5 times after that, I can't really recall seeing him. I really don't know who he was. And that's something that I'm still trying to discover, the good, bad, and ugly. I want to know. I want to know. So I didn't necessarily have that pride. I couldn't look at him and say, okay, he's a business person, or he works, he's a police officer, he's a firefighter, or he owns this or owns that. I didn't have that, okay, growing up. And that's one thing. But the other part of it was, and I really remember this. I remember this. Growing up in high school, I was a 2-sport athlete. I was really good. Or you have to ask somebody else. I can't really say that. But I thought I was pretty good, right? And I was a 2-sport athlete. And I remember during games looking at the parents, looking at the fathers, looking at how they used to, just cheer on their sons. And I can recall later in life really thinking about that, like, wow, wouldn't the father be happy to have a son who was a football captain, basketball captain, homecoming king, just doing a lot of good things. I wasn't getting into trouble. I was, being successful, in a way. And so part of me, there was a loss there because I didn't necessarily get that. I got it in other ways. But I didn't get it from my father, right? So that was one, issue. The other issue and daddy issue and loss was the loss of inheritance, business, land, wealth, right? In Proverbs 13:22, it says, a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, right? And the wealth of the sinner is stored up for the righteous. But a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, right? So I didn't get that, right? And I remember having a conversation with a friend about some of his colleagues that were actually had to step up in a way. They were maybe provided up on the business or property or something that helped them to build their legacy, right? And so when I thought about that, I'm like, wow, I kind of missed that, And so even talking with my brothers, our focus is to make sure that doesn't happen. It stops here. And so that doesn't happen for the next generation, right? That we leave something for them and for our grandkids and that sort of thing. But that was something that, I thought about, not having a dad there and not having an inheritance from him. The third thing, and again, I got a lot of issues. I don't know about you. I have a lot of issues to work out, and with the help of the Lord, I'm definitely doing that. Learning about myself so I can be better for my family, for my wife, for my spouse, my children, right? And I hope you're doing the same. And that's why I'm sharing. The other issue that I had as far as not having a dad is the relationships, right? Relationships. We're living epistles known and read. Part of our learning is not taught, it's caught. Part of our learning is not taught, it's caught. It's the example, the exposure, and the experience that enhances, what we retain ultimately and use in our lives. So not having, a dad there and not really understanding or even seeing, a healthy relationship between a man and a woman, that's a deficit. And if you didn't experience that, one of the things that they say, studies have shown that again, the chances of you having a child out of wedlock increases when there's no father in the picture, and also being promiscuous, is heightened because of it. Right? So not having that healthy relationship to emulate is impactful, right? And even as a married man, just kind of even dealing with. I had a conversation with a friend of mine about even dealing with communication, having appropriate communication, right, and not having mixed signals. Right. So when she asks me or she questions me about something, she's not necessarily trying to uproot or usurp my authority. Right. She may be just asking the question, wants to know what's going on. Right. But, if you're not careful, you may take it personally. She's coming for me. Right. And it's similarly for women, right? If your man is talking to you or what have you, you might think, well, you're not going to control me, right? You sometimes, because you didn't have that experience, the communication gets distorted, right? And so there was a book by Edwin Lewis called Maximize Manhood. And one of the things that he identified, and we all know, is that communication, sex, and money is really major factors in determining the success of relationships, right? And so even not having a dad, or having to see that relationship and how it impacted your communication, right? And communication is a major component to relationships, right? Being able to discuss things, being able to get on the same wavelength, right? So important. And I'm going to kind of park here a little bit, because when you think about communication, there was an issue there, but also sex. I don't know about you, but as a young person, not having a healthy perspective as it relates to sex was detrimental. When you had all you had was movies and music or friends that kind of talked about these things, or if you weren't having sex, you weren't cool, or it kind of glorified promiscuity, right? And and so the thing is that so sex was like a badge of honor, and when I look back at that, I'm not necessarily proud of that. I'm not proud of, the way I acted, quite honestly, and my focus at times. Why? Because I wasn't necessarily schooled on the power of sex and in the purpose of sex, and that and so that sex wasn't something that you kind of did willy-nilly, or that sort of thing, And if I had to do it over again, I would definitely do it differently. Because I think it's it's so powerful, right? And so okay, we're talking about daddy issues. All right, you guys, join the family, share, like, comment, and subscribe to Kicking It with Brother Smalls. We're talking about daddy issues. All right. So I kind of laid a foundation. I kind of gave you some of the issues out there, some of the things that I've dealt with, pride and not necessarily having a dad to kind of honor in the sense of glory and say, hey, that's my dad type of thing. The aspect of not having an inheritance or business or land or wealth or, hey, this is how you do things, right? You kind of have to, start at ground zero and, work your way up, right? And for many of us, that's our story, right? And then also the training, the relationships, how you communicate with others, even how you receive correction, right? I didn't, for me, I didn't necessarily take correction. I don't know if I needed to be a little bit more mature. I'll just say that. I can recall in my head, like, it was almost like a fight or flight type of response I had. If a man spoke to me a certain way, it was either I was shutting down or, we going at it, right? So, so again, just the way you just deal every day was impacted, right, by not having a father in the home. Now, I say all that, and I definitely have to tell you that I was blessed. I have to tell you that I had a grandfather who taught me, who was an example for me. There's a lot of brothers in the community that took me under their wing. A lot of brothers made sure that I kind of stayed out of trouble, worked out with me and that sort of thing. So definitely don't want to, present these like, God didn't provide for me, because I definitely believe that he provided for me, and he, provided, great relationships by men in the community that looked out for me, right? So it's important. And me sharing this and you actually delving into some of those issues doesn't mean that, or doesn't discount, the blessings of God in your life, or how, he used other people, maybe an uncle, maybe a grandparent, maybe a big brother, to kind of fill in the gap there, right? So I'm going to give you 5 steps to kind of help with dealing with daddy issues, okay? The first is confession. Confess that it actually hurt you. Like, it actually hurt me, right? Because I think sometimes we can kind of just grin and bear it. I know as a man, that's kind of how I did it. I just kind of grinned and bear it, and I kind of just kept it moving, did what I needed to do. I didn't really give it much thought. But quite honestly, when you do that, when you cover up issues, very often they crop up in other ways that you didn't expect, right? So again, it's important to kind of try to uncover these things, and I'm going to kind of go over some steps to do that. Confession. In James 5:16, it says, confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed. The earnest prayer of a righteous person has great power and produces wonderful results. So just confessing to somebody, a counselor, a member of the clergy, a friend, a close friend, a confidant, just confession would be very, very helpful in, releasing some of these things, right? And then as you confess these things, right, another step is to have compassion, and again, compassion is empathy with stronger action, right? Compassion to act. And I think compassion allows you to have forgiveness, and forgiveness is very, very powerful in addressing hurts of many kinds. We're talking about daddy issues and daddy hurts, but forgiveness is very, very important. Before my dad passed away, I definitely forgave him. I forgave him for no birthday cards, no Christmas cards, no presents, no not showing up, right? I forgave him for all of that, right? Because he dealt with what he had to deal with, and and so I forgave him for that. Why? I didn't really want to necessarily repeat, some of those things. Really wanting to kind of stop, any issue, and not have it linger on generation after generation. So I forgave him. So confession, compassion that leads to forgiveness, and then counseling and coaching, right? In Proverbs 11:14, it says, where there's no counsel, the people fall, right? But in a multitude of counsels, there is safety. It's actually victory, right? When you get multiple counselors, when you get sound advice, right? So definitely, I'm not a therapist, right? I'm a coach, but I'm not a therapist. And so I definitely encourage, if these are certain things that you want to necessarily deal with and address, that you reach out to a counselor, you reach out to a coach, you reach out to a member of the clergy, someone that could help you to kind of unpack some of these issues. The fourth thing I'm going to say is that as you confess and you have compassion, you forgive, and you get counseling and coaching, that you challenge yourself. You're challenging yourself. You challenge yourself to take another perspective and viewpoint. And it's really important because there's something in social science called cognitive restructuring. And basically all that is replacing negative thoughts with more positive thoughts, right? And so you have to challenge yourself to do that, right? You have to be diligent about those things, because we all get negative thoughts. We all can focus on the glass half empty instead of being half full. And so it's important that when we get these negative thoughts, that we restructure them. We restructure them, right, for more positive thoughts. Thoughts that are going to get you to your next level. Thoughts that are going to help you with your relationship with your spouse or your significant other. Thoughts that are going to help you raise your family or get to that next level in your business, right? So, and then the last thing is continue toward greater change. All right. And how do you continue toward greater change? By consuming what is good spiritually, mentally, and physically. Okay. Now that's really self-care. That's self-care right there. When you continue toward greater change by consuming good spiritually, mentally, and physically. That's self-care, right? Because self-care is really the behaviors that benefit you in your entire being. Some of the things that people are saying is self-care is not really self-care. Some of these things that they talk about self-care is actually, locking you up. It's really, binding you up with things and vices and other things that are not really healthy for you long term. But when you consume good spiritually, mentally, and physically, that's real self-care. That's real self-care there. So again, please share, like, comment, and subscribe. Join the family. Let me know what your thoughts are about the daddy issues, whether you want me to continue to, kind of unpack some of the issues and, have a dialogue with you. That would be great, right? So have a wonderful rest of your day. Smile and remember, every heartbeat is grace. Cherish life and spread love, y'all. Peace.